when we think about white evangelicals specifically, and I'm going to say like Protestant, Reformed, like the wing that sprouted out of 1500, Dutch Reform, Calvinist, to something like anything that came out of the Reformation, and then on, and you could include some of the non-denominational evangelical because it still came out of the Reformation. You know what I'm saying?
You wouldn't include like
or Protestant,
even just like how colonizing like
they all come out of that.
Oh, okay.
They all come out of that tradition. You can still take it back to like Germany and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so you could still take it back to that. They aren't all Calvinists. They're not all like,
right.
you know what I'm saying? But you could still go back to that moment. Because any of the American churches, except for like the traditional high-liturgy ones that are, the Lutheran, although Lutheran too in some ways. But all that to say, you're still products, and I think this is important to understand, you're still products of the Enlightenment. We're still products of the Renaissance and Enlightenment thought and rationalism. As much as the American church likes to say that we're not shaped by the culture, we're at war with the culture. You're still a product of it because it's impossible to not sit in the shadow of history. It's impossible, right? So with that, what I've come to finally realize is after traversing all these different Christian spaces and then sort of coming out of that in the way that we've come out of it, I think they honestly believe they have done the homework and are the keepers of the pure truth. Like, we protect our doctrine, we protect our theology, and if you believe that in your scriptures, you're gonna believe that about everything else in the world. That you are the purveyor, you are the sole purveyors and protectors of truth and understanding.
Yeah.
So any challenge of that, right, is seen as unsafe. It's outside the fence. So like, whether we know it or not, that's what we're communicating or what they're communicating from their pulpits. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And I think some of that can be so especially toxic when it comes from like from really nice people.
That's what makes it
like
hard. Yeah.
They're just like so loving and they're trying so hard to just help us in understanding our faith. And, when you're coming to faith, I'm just thinking about like my example, just coming into just Christianity, being in a space like that where the people themselves were generally like out of their goodness of like their hearts and just really wanting to like come alongside me, like teaching me these beliefs that are like super entrenched with like this white sort of nationalist way of thinking about my Christianity. And I know that for me, I didn't immediately see it because I thought like, oh, okay, this is just what Christianity is.
Yeah.
And it just took a while for me to finally be like, wait a minute, like, no, this is like whiteness, like a lot of this is whiteness. But it was so hard because at an individual level, and this is part of why, about managing white people.
Yeah.
Is that it can be very, very, it could be like gaslighting. It's gaslighting when you're telling me like,
oh, no, you're thinking about this wrong.
Yeah, no, oh, that's not really how you like that, what that means there, we don't really, it's not okay to like really be okay with homosexuality. Oh no, it's not okay to, just whatever other things that, like, oh,
and
yeah.
They got receipts.
Like, they do.
They got receipts. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you start thinking like, oh, okay. Like I'm starting to understand this. And it feels like the more that I understand it, the more that I am invited and loved into that world.
The more you get the notions right.
And then it's just like, oh, wait a minute. This is actually a straight up cult. Like this is what that is,
That's what
at
it feels
this point.
Like. Yeah. It's the,
yeah.
I've heard somebody say like, if your Christianity is essentially, it's the notion that to the degree for which you have the notions correct.
Yes.
Right. Then you are in. And what I'm saying is that's empiricism.
Yeah.
That is Western Enlightenment. Yeah. That is not the faith. Yeah. That's Western Enlightenment. And you get the notions right.
Yeah. And I think it's harder to see now because of how like insidious and like subtle it is.
Yeah.
Unless you're like super aware. But imagine being like the Puritans coming to this land in the name of God.
Yeah.
Enslaving and like causing genocide of a whole people that, like robbing their like winter food so that they could not survive.
Yeah.
All in the name of like,
but believing
this,
you're doing a service to
you're
them.
doing a service. I mean, like that is like literally like the roots
Yeah.
of like gaslighting of like in the church.
Yeah, it's not only, it's crazy to me, like
racially, like starting there and then like fast forwarding to now, like that's how it feels. It feels like you're telling me like I'm only lovable to the extent that like I can believe exactly how you believe in it.
Yeah. Not only do they think that, I was gonna say, not only do they think that they're doing this in service to God, they think they're doing this in service to the native.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm doing you a favor by doing this. You know what I'm saying? And what's even more infuriating in those spaces is when you and I go, well, wait, there were these white people, like the Quakers, that were like, saying y'all were tripping. They were the ones advocating for our lives. And you got the nerve to tell me their theology's bad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like at that point, you're like, oh, okay. So it seemed to me like everybody that's advocating for my survival, you just told me, you know what I'm saying? Or the survival of people that somehow are not y'all, right? So I don't like, I'm starting to notice a pattern here, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but the pattern, like I said, is like, this is what we mean. Well, I'm going to get into this later, but the pattern is this construction of whiteness, and it's so powerful and it's so strong that you even think that's your gospel, is that it's still this construction of whiteness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.